I want to talk about Donald Trump being in Minnesota. And I take a lot of pride. I'm not from Minnesota. I'm a North Dakotan, but often, North Dakotans like me look east and think of themselves as Minnesotans, especially when, you're more liberal-minded and urban-oriented. But anyway, there's a lot of troubles, particularly with red Minnesota and the Conservative Party. And Donald Trump went up to address some of those red Minnesotans in Duluth, and here's what he had to say.
That we've got to change it. Who's going to do what we've done for you? Right? Another massive issue for Minnesota is the election of Joe Biden's plan to inundate your state with a historic flood of refugees. Biden and crazy Bernie Sanders have agreed on a manifesto. Did you see last night? I didn't agree. After the show, they said, oh, actually he did. Oh, great. They fact-checked. They found out he made a mistake, slight mistake. It's the worst thing you've ever seen. But they pledged a 700% increase in refugees. 700%. Congratulations, Minnesota. Congratulations. Now, and what about Omar, where she gets caught harvesting? What the hell is going on? I hope your U.S. attorney is involved. What is going on with Omar? I've been reading these reports for 2 years about how corrupt and crooked she is. Let's get with it. Let's get with it.
All right, that's good.
I mean, frankly, harvesting.
So, to be clear, this is a Project Veritas smear of Ilhan, Keith Ellison, and the Somali community in Minnesota. And it goes back, we posted the clip from New York Times of poll watchers accusing specific communities, mainly like non-white and poor, of cheating at the ballot box. This is just exactly what that is. The allegations against Ilhan are particularly spurious, tied to this guy named Omar Jamel, who started something called the Somali Watchdog Group a month ago. That was registered. He's known as basically telling journalists exactly what they want to hear about radical Muslims. He was in the Obama administration. He's talking about Al-Qaeda infiltration of that Somali community a few years ago, or maybe it was just a year ago, talking about Ilhan being anti-Semitic. So Omar Jamel, I think he's a black guy basically. So I think the identity politics representational, he weaponizes that, and this is very dangerous because I want to play now the way the right wing is responding to this. This is Josh Bernstein. Hey, Matt, are you there?
I am there. Do you hear me?
Nice. Yes, we can.
Beautiful.
Great. Awesome. So this is Josh Bernstein. Now, I don't know who Josh Bernstein is, but I think what he says here, despite some of the language used, is exactly in line with the Minnesota GOP and most of the other GOP's response to this party. Now, they wouldn't use some of the language he says here, but play this clip, and I'd like every Republican to delineate where they disagree here.
I believe that the FBI and the Department of Justice should charge Ilhan Omar Saeed Elmi with sedition, treason, marriage fraud, voter fraud, illegal campaign contributions, immigration fraud, and aiding and abetting our enemies. She is a worthless pile of shit. Okay? Let me be as clear as I can, Right Wing Watch. All right? She should be arrested, tried, and I know your favorite word, Right Wing Watch. What's your favorite word? How many articles have you written about me when I've used this word? The E word? That's right. This bitch should be executed. There it is. I said it once again.
Now, I don't think most Republicans want her executed, but a lot of that is basically the attitude that they're conveying about her. Every single one of the statements from official Republicans in that state has been to bolster James O'Keefe's claims. That's the kid's name, right? From Project Veritas?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It sounds like a school shooter's name, to be honest, which is why I paused for a second there. And something else happened with regards to, I want to just draw, I'm sorry this has been indulgent in the upper Midwest, but something else happened with regards to the Minnesota GOP being what I would call I guess, neo-Nazi or crypto-Nazi, is so last night there was a debate, or I guess Senator Roger Chamberlain basically was asked about, I don't know, have you heard of the Bronze Age Manifesto, either of you? Mm-hmm. So can you characterize that for us? Basically, I don't know much about it.
Matt B might know more than me. I just know that it's some like alt-right white civilization, great replacement nonsense.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you really need to know about it.
Okay, so Roger Chamberlain was asked about his promotion of this, and here's this exchange.
Earlier this summer, a publication, the Minnesota Reformer, called into question some of your Twitter activity, saying that you sent a tweet to and have liked several tweets, I believe, by someone reported to be someone who talks a lot about in a book and on a podcast about white supremacist ideas. And your opponent and other DFL party in the state made a little bit of hay with that. Do you have any kind of response for that?
Two things is, first, it's libel, it's slander. They took the post down.
They haven't.
Both on Twitter and Facebook.
Earlier this summer.
Okay, so let's go to the evidence, which the Minnesota Democratic Party helpfully pointed out here. Just a few screenshots of Roger Chamberlain retweeting, the book, A Bronze Age Mindset by Bronze Age Pervert. Look at that. I mean, like, I don't know. So it's not libel. It has not been retracted. He's a liar. He is a lying like a fascist lies. And that's what the Minnesota Republican Party is. And it is super dangerous what they have been doing to Ilhan the entire time. And she needs more support from her party. And also the Minnesota police point out they're looking into voter fraud allegations after the Project Veritas scoop. I hope that they're taking death threats against Ilhan as seriously. And if any threat is at the hands of the official Republican Party of Minnesota. This is not Trump. This is not anything else. This is a festering mess in the Minnesota Republican Party, and it terrifies me all the time because I know people who work for Ilhan. Like it's terrifying. There's a lot of guns in northern Minnesota.
Right. Matt has been ballot harvesting with people that he knows in Minnesota.
Donald Trump's vote is harvested. His Florida vote is harvested.
No, listen, it really goes to show you just how wrong-headed all those, and I don't want to say leftists, but left-leaning people, a lot of mainstream Democrats were, when they were jumping on the anti-Ilhan Omar train right when Donald Trump and other sort of right-wing groups were attacking her for really ridiculous reasons, for a tweet where she called out how corporate lobbyists affect how politicians act and how they vote. And they basically turned it into some sort of anti-Semitic attack that she was perpetrating, which was absolutely 100% not true. Mm-hmm. And people on Democrats and people left-leaning fell for it. And they jumped on board the train to attack her and demonize her. And they forced some sort of apology out of her. And they still haven't really walked back what they did to her. While white supremacists were sending her death threats, she also had to deal with people who ostensibly are on her side are, poo-pooing a tweet that she did. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. People need to understand the context here. There was also Dan Crenshaw saying that she was downplaying 9/11 when the specific point she was making is that people projected Islamic terrorism on every Muslim. That's the type of dishonesty. And that's not dishonesty about anything. That's dishonesty about terrorism. Okay. We killed hundreds of thousands of people over that, right? That is incitement to violence. And that's what the official Republican policy is towards Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. And hate crimes went up, as we all know, in the Bush years, in the 9/11 era, at a time when Muslims were being demonized. And she experienced racist abuse when she was a child in school. So the fact that this is still happening is not surprising, but it is very concerning that it seems to be on an upswing. Also, I have been ambivalent, and I'm still ambivalent about the idea of an armed left. But when I hear shit like this, it makes me think that she should have an armed bodyguard at all times, because there are people who want to do her harm, and the Republicans, the people that she has to sit across the aisle from in her own state, they are whipping up this racist hatred, and it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump literally just said stand by to a documentedly violent hate group.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And on top of that, actually, I was just looking at a story the other day. I can't remember which Democratic House member it was, but one of the House members who is in the Democratic Party has been receiving tons of death threats, and he's a middle-aged white guy. So obviously, it's not as bad as how Ilhan Omar receives. But here we have a white guy receiving death threats because, and this is where it gets analogous to what we were just talking about. The National Republican, the National Republican Campaign Committee, Congressional Committee, has put out ads attacking him using QAnon language right after he signed on to a bipartisan bill to basically get Congress to officially denounce QAnon. And now he's receiving tons of death threats because the QAnon conspiracy theorists think that he's a pedophile. And the National Republican Congressional Committee has signed on to this with ads basically promoting that very same ideological belief that these guys have. I mean, this is the Republican Party. It's not just some sort of fringe group. Even if the mainstream doesn't actually believe it, they full on take advantage of the fringe groups and use it for their own attacks.
100%. I mean, I'm fairly certain, and I haven't been following the QAnon stuff super closely, but I'm fairly certain I've heard of even prior candidates dropping out for similar attention. Like, just, I can't handle this. Like, QAnon is becoming basically a mass digital connected brown shirt movement to harass local candidates. Like, That's right. I mean, that's what it's being activated now as, and 100%. And by the way, let's bring up somebody else who piled onto the Ilhan stuff by promoting Project Veritas. Tulsi Gabbard, who has been synchronized with fascist talking points since she used to troll Obama for not saying radical Islamic terrorism. And most recently, she joined the cuties, pile-on.
And that makes her my biggest enemy, actually.
I mean, yeah, like, I kind of... It shouldn't be surprising, I guess, right?
She's always been a wingnut, and she's always aligned herself with ethno-nationalists. So it's really, the situation in the U.S. right now is somewhat analogous to the situation in India, right? Where an ethnic majority decides to do an ethno-nationalism and oppress minorities. And, she probably feels very familiar with it.
Brendan, could you bring up that picture I just put I dropped in the IM of Tulsi Gabbard's recent Instagram stories?
And then,
we had this morning.
And then a certain type of person who usually denigrates.
You showed it in the beginning. Oh, okay, right. Yeah. I mean, this is who she backs up, Dan Crenshaw. I mean, this is completely unsurprising, but still, it tells you exactly who she is.
And a certain type of person who denigrates any what they perceive an expression of identity politics rushes to Tulsi's defense when you say, hey, maybe this like Hindutva and Modi stuff, maybe we should interrogate that a little bit as to where your political allegiances lie. That's actually offensive to do. I mean, I think Tulsi's a snake, as like every bit as much as the Tulsi people like to say Elizabeth Warren was, and Elizabeth Warren also was, but Tulsi is too. And the people that didn't see it and that chose to overlook I don't know how people overlook the radical Islamic terror thing unless you're just bigoted against Muslims as well. But
I mean, my take on her, not to get too into this on the first half of the show, but my take on her was always, listen, if she wants to endorse a leftist candidate and support them and bring whatever weirdos who support her along for the ride, let they could be an ally in that way, but in no way should you bring them into the larger, discussion. No way should you become a supporter of hers and get on board the Tulsi Gabbard Express or whatever. I mean, it is what it is during a primary, but at the same time, you need to understand who these people are at their core, and not just, just because they endorse someone, you also doesn't mean they're all of a sudden are a staunch leftist.
Yeah. And I'll say a lot of people are buying into the mythology around the courage it took her to endorse Bernie Sanders. And I would just say, I don't think any of us maybe know everything that went on with her and the DNC. So like,
Right.
I think it's a little bit embarrassing the way people always point to that. Like she took a huge risk.
Right.
Pretty obvious reward there.
No, I completely agree. But also, let's talk about more recently. I mean, it was really courageous actually for her in 2020 to keep her completely dead and never getting off the ground campaign going when it just came down to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden realistically. And then also drop out while Bernie finally, after the major races, and Bernie probably didn't have a shot at that point, but he was still in the race, and she drops out and finally endorses Joe Biden. Very courageous of her.